Okay, so welcome to, I think it's the fifth webinar in the Livestock webinar series. This one is on managing fire ants. And we do have a guest speaker with us tonight. I'll introduce him in just a moment. I did want to go over the polling questions real quick. So about 90% of y'all are saying that you do have a fire ant problem. There is one person saying they don't. And so just hang tight because you probably will soon. Unfortunately. Number two, have you treated that area for the fire ants? About half of y'all are saying yes, the other half is saying no. And then there's still a person that doesn't have fire ants. And then if you have treated, what have you used? So some have used Amdro Pro, Amdro 7, and then there's some others in there. And those folks might have fire ants and might not have treated. So I'm gonna leave that running for folks that are still coming in right now. Dr. Watson, can you see those polling results on your end?
Yes, I can see them.
Okay, perfect. Well, I won't recap them then. You can glance at them from time to time.
Okay,
All right.
will do.
Okay, so like I said, we have Dr. Wes Watson with us tonight. He is a professor in the Department of Entomology and Plant Pathology. His responsibilities are with livestock and poultry pest management. And his degrees were earned from Wyoming, Nebraska, and Cornell. And he was hired at NCSU in 1997. And if you have not heard from Dr. Watson before about anything pest management related, you're in for a real treat tonight. He's incredibly knowledgeable. I've heard him speak on so many different topics. So you are definitely going to learn everything there is to know about fire ants tonight. And if you have questions, just please put those in the chat window and we'll do a Q&A at the end. If I can answer it along the way, I will, but we can definitely ask Dr. Watson questions at the end. So I'm going to stop screen sharing, Dr. Watson, and turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. I'll go ahead and get started with the screen sharing. And you all should be able to see my screen now. And I will get started with our presentation. So this evening, we're going to discuss fire ant management. And this is a presentation that Mike Waldvogel, who is our urban and public health entomologist, and I have worked on over the years. Mike, if you have had a chance to see him give a presentation, he's a very knowledgeable person from that urban and public health aspect. And Mike is getting ready to retire here real soon. So I don't imagine he'll really retire because he's just too active at this point to actually go all the way through with retirement. So anyway, yes, I am the veterinary entomologist and been here at NC State since 1997. And it's been a real treat to be here in North Carolina and consider North Carolina my home now. So we're here to talk a little bit about fire ants. And I can see from the poll that nearly all of you have encountered fire ants. The mounds are popping up all over the place now. This time of the year, you could hardly drive down a roadway or look out into any open space at all without seeing the mounds currently. So how do you know the difference between fire ants and other kinds of ants? Well, here on the upper left side is this red ant. That's the red imported fire ant. That is the species that we have here in North Carolina. The one on the right, the upper right-hand side, is the black imported fire ant. A much darker insect, and we don't have this insect in North Carolina. It does exist in central Tennessee, but we don't have it here in North Carolina. Now, how can you tell the difference between these ants and our native ants? And hopefully, you will be able to see these two little bumps. I hope my cursor's showing through. But these two little bumps that you see on the pedestal of these two ants, the two fire ants. And that's very distinctive, and the normal or native ants that we've got in North America do not have that structure. So that's an easy way to tell if you have a chance to look at them up really close. And I recommend you look at a dead one really close. And so that would give you a chance to look at it. So where did they come from originally? The fire ants were original to South America. The red imported fire ant was around Brazil and Paraguay and Argentina, and the black imported fire ant came from Uruguay and a little bit further south in Argentina. And they entered the United States through the port of Mobile in Alabama about 1930. So when they came to North Carolina, the first time was in 1952 when they turned up in Wake County and over in Mecklenburg County. They disappeared for a few years after that. And then in 1957, they appeared again in Brunswick County. And since they became permanently established in Brunswick County and have spread across the state over the years. In 2010, the red imported fire ant had spread up into all of these counties that are seen here in red. And by 2019, they've even expanded a little bit farther, but you can still see that there's kind of a northern boundary where they haven't quite become established yet. And hopefully we may not see them go too much further in the north into that white zone that you see. Now, all of those that are marked in red are regulated areas, and movement of certain regulated articles like hay, for example, from this area into or through a white area requires an inspection. And so the white area, you can move regulated materials from the white area as long as it originated into the red areas without having an inspection. So that's a pretty important distinguishing feature about what we can do with the quarantine area of red imported fire ant with the state of North Carolina. Now, I'm sure all of you, it seems like most of you have encountered fire ants, so you know what happens when you disturb a fire ant mound. The ants come boiling up out of the ground. They are going to defend their nest. They will swarm onto your boots or on your shoes, start up your leg, and once they start finding skin, then they can start biting you or stinging you. Now, the sting, fire ants are part of the Hymenoptera, which is the same group that is like bees and wasps. And fire ants will sting you. They have a stinger at the end of their abdomen. They will bite your skin and hold on with their mandibles and then thrust that stinger into the skin. The venom that's in the fire ant stinger will cause a blister. It triggers an allergic reaction, and those people that have a bee allergy, bee sting allergy, or a wasp sting allergy, they can become particularly sensitive to fire ant stings as well. In fact, we have, in several cases across the country, seen fire ants attacking individuals that result in the death of that individual. So we know that when you encounter these ants, and if there's enough of them and you get stung enough, they will kill you. The other problems caused by fire ants are ecological. For example, they'll displace native ant species that are part of our natural ecosystems. They can injure ground nesting birds. In the coastal areas, they will sting tourists, although there's probably not many tourists in the coastal area right now. They can also invade sea turtle nests and kill some of the sea turtles that are trying to make their way to the ocean. In livestock operations, they can harm newborns on the farm. Sometimes these newborns will die if they get stung enough by these fire ants. They can damage equipment either by having the mounds damaged or some of the equipment that's actually on the farm, like electrical equipment, which I'll get to a little bit later. And they can also damage some crops because they will take seed, they'll do all kinds of things with the plant itself, and try to use that for some of its nutrition. They can infest feed. They can degrade the forage plants. They can become a problem in hay production because when we put up hay, we can scoop up lots of fire ants in that hay, and they get trapped in the bale, and they will be moved about pretty easily. And as a result of that, that's why we've got our regulatory compliance in the quarantine zone. Now, fire ants, when they start creating a nest, they can undermine concrete slabs, they can do damage to roads, earthen dams, they can invade and short out electrical motors. They can chew and damage insulation, and I have no idea why they like to eat insulation, but they will do that. They will also crawl into terminal boxes and things like that and establish nests inside of those, and they can cause lots of problems whenever there's an electrical field around and a sufficient amount of insulation that they're attracted to. So fire ants are eusocial insects. That means that they live in a colony very similar to honeybees and hornets. They have reproductive division of labor. Almost all of the workers and the castes of the workers are all females. They all have different jobs. They all have essential jobs that are for the colony itself. And they also have cooperative care of the brood and offspring, in which the workers will provide food to the brood, and then that the brood then can digest that food, and they feed it back to the workers themselves. This is an interesting video, and I will narrate it for you because I know that the audio is not going to work in this case. But years ago, when we had Hurricane Floyd here in North Carolina, there were a lot of people that were out in their boats trying to rescue people and animals and things like that. And they kept running into these massive islands or floats of fire ants. And once they would encounter these in a boat, the ants would come into the boat and the people would go out of the boat and into the water to try to avoid these fire ants. So I'm going to play this video. This was taken down in South America, and you can tell when you watch it that it probably is in South America as you see it. I'll give you a little narration as we go through. So when an area floods, the fire ants will come out of the soil, and in mass, they will form a giant raft. And on that raft, they will bring their brood, and you can see some carrying larvae here. They will put it up onto the raft. They'll have the pupae, the larvae. They'll carry everything up onto that top of that raft. And all of the fire ants are holding themselves together with their legs and their mandibles. And they make this floating mat that will move around on the surface of the water. Now, as they move about, they just float freely. And sometimes the predators will come in and they will start to nibble at the edges of this. And so some of them will be consumed at that time. Some of the, here we will see a queen ant here who's being taken care of by the brood, by the workers. They are trying to protect her from the water. They don't want her to drown. And so they will keep after her and make sure that she doesn't fall into the water and get eaten by something else. So as this floating mat of ants move about, here's some of the predators coming in and feeding on them. It works its way out into the more open water in this case. And now it's in the river, and we have boats on the river just like what we probably would have seen during Hurricane Floyd. The mat then is being pushed by the wave action in the river, the flow of the river toward land. And I'm going to skip ahead here just a bit, if I may. Oh, shoot it, cut it off. So let me see if I can get back to that area. So here we've got the ant has here the ants have landed and they've pulled up onto the shore. They're pulling up the pupae right here. So the workers will take them, pull them up onto the land. They'll pull the larvae up onto the land and they groom themselves off. They get the water off of themselves. Here they're pulling the queen up out of the mud and the water, pulling her up onto the land. And then once they get on dry ground, they will then try to find a dry spot and they will start excavating and creating a nest. So in the spring of the year, we have winged adults appear. These winged adults will mate, so there will be males and females. They will mate. The queen has two distinct genetic forms. They can be single queens or multiple queens. In this case, what happens is that a single queen will be the only queen in the colony, and her offspring, all of her workers and brood, they will defend that colony against all other ants, including other fire ants. They recognize the scent or the odor of their colony, and they will not allow others to intrude on their territory. If they were multiple queens in the colony, these ants are much more tolerant of others, and they kind of form these mega colonies, these large colonies where there will be several queens in the colony and everyone seems to get along. So the queen ant then digs a chamber after she's mated in the ground. She starts laying eggs and cares for her brood. So she does it initially. She'll lay about 200 eggs per day, and then over her 5-year lifespan, she'll create about 350,000 eggs. And if it's a multiple queen colony, you could imagine in that 5-year time span, if you've got 4 or 5 queens in that colony, you can have a pretty substantial group of ants in that colony itself. The workers will live about 2 to 6 months. The mounds are almost always built in sunny, open areas. They're in lawns, they're in pastures, along fence lines, near slabs, and near the base of trees. And so anytime you move around, you can see this kind of mound, this kind of amorphous mound on the surface of the ground, and that tells you that it's definitely a fire ant. So the ants are typical dome shaped, depending upon the soil type, with no central opening. They can be around the slab, as you can see here on this concrete slab on the lower left. And if you see a funnel-shaped mound, a small one with a hole in the middle of it, those are other kinds of ants. Those are probably the native ants, and they are harmless for all of our consideration. So the fire ant mounds, they are very distinct, and they do not have that funnel shape. Now here's another video. Oops, back up here. Excuse me for the difficulty I'm having here. This is another video that I'd like to show you. This shows an excavation of a mound. And in this video, what they had done was taken a fire ant mound, which measured 18 inches by 7 inches high. They poured molten aluminum down into the mound itself. Now, this was certainly would be one way of killing off a mound, pouring molten aluminum into there. But it's probably not advisable to do it this way. But their intention here is to create art out of that mound itself. So they have poured the aluminum in there, and in doing so, it is hardened. And they started the excavation. They will pull it out of the ground, very sandy soil here. They dig it out. And here they're pulling it out the rest of the way. They loosen it up with a shovel. They lift it out of the ground and they hose it off to get the rest of the dirt out of it. And you can see how distinctive the mound is itself. It looks very much like a Christmas tree, doesn't it? So if you just look at that drawing that we've got on the right-hand side and that picture itself, you can see how the mound actually does look relative to that. So fire ants are usually active in the morning, especially when temperatures are between 65 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Small mounds often show up in the fall, in October and November, after you've stopped looking for them and treating them. So many of these smaller mounds won't survive a winter, but they can become a problem for you the next spring if they do survive. So I mentioned how ants have this very tiny structure on their abdomen, this little narrow restriction right there. Now that should give you a good clue as to what adult ants eat. Do they eat solids or do they eat liquids? Well, they eat liquids, but they collect solids. So when they're out foraging, they will pick up solids, whether they're insects or grain or pieces of corn grit or fire ant bait for that matter. They will pick it up. They will take it to the colony. And once it's in the colony, they feed it to the brood. And they require carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, just like we do. So at certain times of the year, they're more interested in carbohydrates. Other times, they're more interested in fats. So once the brood has been given these solids, they then convert it to a liquid, and they transfer that liquid food to the queen and to the other workers by a process called trophallaxis. And here on the lower right-hand side of the screen, you can see that there are two adult ants here transferring food from one to another. In the upper picture on the left-hand side, you can see that they're collecting honeydew from a scale insect off of a plant. So honeydew is almost all sugar, and that's what they're after there to give to their brood. So a lot of people ask about what is going on with biological control agents. We have 4 species of forage flies that have been released in North America, in the US, for the control of fire ants. Currently, populations are not high enough for them to actually impact the ant population. But it's a tiny fly, and you can see one right here. This fly attacks the fire ant, lays an egg on usually the thorax of the ant, where it hatches, goes inside of the ant, and then eventually works its way up into the head capsule, where it consumes the head and forcing the head to decapitate or to pop off. And then the adult forage fly then crawls out of the decapitated head. We have these in North Carolina, but their numbers are really, really small, and they have not had much of a chance to really build. So we still have to try to manage the old ones. So how do you pick your fire ant management tool? Well, it's whether or not you want to have an application that's a broadcast or an individual mound treatment. And that also tells you what kind of formulation you may want to have as well. Liquid versus granular, or dust, or maybe a bait itself. So the choice of control methods often depends upon the numbers of mounds that you have and how sensitive your area may be, and if it's restricted on the label. So here we've got a photo of Mike on the left-hand side out looking for fire ant mounds around a school. There's a fence there around the school grounds, and he's looking for fire ant mounds in that particular area. The picture on the right was provided for me to me by Lauren, and this was up in Alamance County, and it shows fire ant mound in a pasture near a feed bunk. Here's one in a livestock facility You can see fire ant mound really obvious right there. And these ants are quite willing to go inside of the building as well as when they're foraging. So they will go inside buildings. So there's a lot of home remedies out there, and they don't work. You often will see that there are remedies like gasoline, pouring diesel fuel on them. Some have said Tide detergent works best. Ammonia, bleach, ammonia and bleach, which, by the way, if you mix ammonia and bleach, you release chlorine gas, and that can kill you. Vinegar is another home remedy. Gasoline and used motor oil, instant grits. The theory was with instant grits is that when the ant consumed it and then drank water, it would swell up and explode. Well, we know that they don't eat solids, and so that's not going to work. Hot water can be a good tool, but it's hot and you can scald yourself, so you have to be careful. So what happens when you use a lot of these home remedies is that you generally make the ant mound move. So they will move away from you or from where they were located, and it looks like you've accomplished something, but maybe 10, 15 feet away, there's another mound growing, and that was where your ants had moved to. So kinds of mound treatments. The advantages of mound treatments are they are quick, and you don't need a lot of chemical to treat them. The disadvantages of mound treatment is that they're intensive, labor intensive, because you have to find a mound, you have to, and then treat those mounds. And if you've got a large number of mounds, you can find yourself running all over the place just trying to treat these mounds. It also leaves a surface residue of chemicals. And if you don't want animals getting into it, whether it's pets or even your children or something like that, there's a bit of a worry about having chemicals on the surface of the ground. 7 was one of the insecticides that was mentioned in the poll. And this is a nice product that is good for mound treatments. The active ingredient is carbaryl. We're all familiar with this. It's been around for decades. So when you look at the label, it says apply a total of 2 gallons of the diluted solution over the surface of each mound, or at least 1 quart per 6 inches of mound diameter. You use a bucket. When you mix that up, you thoroughly wet the mound and surrounding area to a 4-foot diameter. Do not disturb the mound prior to treatment. Pour the solution from a height of about 3 feet to give sufficient force for the liquid to break the mound apex, the crust on the mound, and so it will flow into the tunnels and go all the way down to where all of the brood is and where the queen may be hiding. You want to do this when the weather is cool, about 65 to 80 degree weather, usually in the early morning or late evening. And after you do that, you may have to come back and do it again in 7 days if it looks like the ants have not all died from that treatment. So here's a good example of that, pouring the 7 onto the surface of the mound. As I said, 1 to 2 gallons per mound. Pour it around the mound and through the mound. You try to penetrate that mound as much as possible, and make sure that the product is labeled for that particular site. If you're using it around lawns or in your gardens, make sure that the label says it's okay for that kind of treatment area. Another one that Mike is demonstrating here is to apply it with an injection system. You apply the insecticides in the spring or fall. You can treat in midday. In the summer, you're best to treat in the early morning or evening. Now, in this demonstration, what Mike has, and which is out of the side of the image here, is that he's got a sprayer, and it's attached to this wand. And he takes the wand and he forces the wand down through the mound to the bottom of the mound itself, or to the bottom of the nest. And you can tell because it changes in how easily you can penetrate that. And then he applies his fingers to the trigger and starts letting the insecticide loose, and he withdraws the wand up through the mound, and it applies insecticide all the way through. So you really start at the bottom of the mound, and you spray it as you lift the wand up through the mound itself. So the big question is, why do you treat at certain times of the day? And that's because that's when ants in the immatures of the brood are closer to the mound surface during those times of days. And this is a diagram that shows each month of the year. This is January through December. And the little orange circles show you where the brood is typically located within each of those months, whether it's in the morning or in midday. And you can see how the workers will move the brood up and down in the soil in order to protect the brood from either too much heat or too much cold. So they keep the temperature as balanced as possible and will move that brood around. So the next group of applications we're going to talk about are broadcast applications. They are usually quick and easy, a lot easier than mound treatments. They are less expensive method for large areas. They require less labor and less time. The disadvantages is that they work slower than the liquid treatments. And if you have something coming up really soon that you wanted to have somebody come over to your place or something like that, and you want to get rid of those mounds pretty quickly, it's a good idea to use a liquid treatment. But if you've got time, a few weeks before anything is planned, you can go with a broadcast application and achieve the same goal. So for cattle producers, you want to use a broadcast application to treat high value areas like hay fields, calving grounds, pastures if the number of mounds exceed 20 per acre. Some of the baits that are available out there include Extinguish Professional, Extinguish Plus, Esteem, Amdro Pro. Most of the fertilizer spreaders that we got do not have a gauge that will allow you to put out ant bait. But the Herd GT77 spreader seen here in this picture has a setting specifically for fire ant bait. And it's pretty good for what you would need to do a broadcast application from the back of a four-wheeler. So fire ant baits, most of these are insect growth regulators. They prevent the brood from maturing. They do not kill the adult ants. Because of the trophallaxis that we talked about, the ants will feed this material to the queen, and in doing so, they will sterilize the queen. They prevent the brood from reaching maturity, and as a result, they can disrupt the colony itself, and eventually the adults will either die off or you can come back and retreat with an adulticide to kill off the rest of the workers. But some of the insecticides here include Advion, Amdro plus Extinguish Plus for pastures, and Siesta, for example, are some of the insecticides that are formulated in baits. This is an Extinguish Plus bait. This is one that I use. Costs about it costs about $200 for 25 pounds. On the label, there are a couple of things to look for. You want to make sure that it says pastures or rangeland. You also want to see what it says here, and it says here, do not exceed 8 pounds per acre per year or more than 4 applications a year with a minimum retreatment interval of 90 days. Do not bale and cut treated pasture or rangeland for 7 days following the application. Now, that 7 days is your waiting period before you should really be worried about food producing animals going out there. So you want to wait 7 days. Cutting alfalfa and baling the hay, restrictions for pastures do not apply when the pasture or rangeland is used solely for companion animals, horses, llamas, things like that. Companion animals can graze on treated areas that as long as they are not used for food. And so that pretty much tells you that if it's a food producing animal, you want to wait that 7 days before you put that animal back out on that pasture. Esteem is also an insect growth regulator. The active ingredient is pyriproxyfen. This is a slow acting compound. It also runs about $200 for a 25-pound bag. And it says here you can use it on pasture grass and rangeland. It also says after 14 days, it may be desirable to apply a registered pesticide to kill the remaining foraging adults that may be on in that mound. And those assumes that the brood and the queen have been sterilized, the brood has died, and the workers are just remaining foraging ants that you may have to use an adulticide for. It also says for pasture grasses and rangeland, the pre-harvest interval is 0 days for this particular product. For pasture grass and rangeland, do not plant any crop other than those registered for pyriproxyfen uses in the area sooner than 30 days after the last application. The reason for this is pyriproxyfen is very residual. It lasts in the environment for a long time as an insect growth regulator. So that's the reason for that restriction. So here are some other baits that are out there. Andro ant block is used in the residential area. The active is hydromethanon. Andro Pro fire ant bait, which is in our pole, that's also used on grass and forage for pasture. Serve professional fire ant bait, that's spinosad. That can be used around corrals and buildings. Distance fire ant bait is also pyriproxyfen, can be used on non-grazed pastures. Extinguished professional fire ant bait is S-methoprene, which is an insect growth regulator. That can be applied to pastures. Seduce insect bait is spinosad. That can be applied to pastures. And valent esteem ant bait is pyriproxyfen. That can be applied to pastures. So those all give you ideas of kinds of products that are available for fire ant control. Some of the granular baits are more fast acting. They have some advantages in as much as that they can be easy to use. They're less expensive method for large areas. They are less hazardous than other fire ant insecticides like the liquids. They require less labor for mound treatments. The disadvantages is that they are slower than liquid treatments, and in some cases they may be too slow for when you have a concern about people being stung by fire ants, like around a playground or schools or something like that. It can also impact non-target ants. So what's the best way to find out when is a good time for you to apply fire ant baits or start treating for fire ants? You can use, you want to use fresh baits, check the manufacture date. When in doubt, test some out. Find out if it's actually working. If you've got an active mound, see if it's working. A couple of other things that you can do is apply when you do not expect to see any rain. That can become a real issue for washing the insecticide away, preventing it from reaching the ants that you want to target. Apply the baits around the mound, but not on the mound. So you want to spread around the mound as much as possible, usually in a diameter about 2 or 3 foot circle around the outside of the mound whenever possible. Do it when temperatures are running between 70 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit. And you can use the potato chip or hot dog test in the spring. And this is a good one to use right now. What happens is that you take potato chips or hot dogs and put them out on the ground around where you have fire ants moving about, that you suspect there are mounds there, and that you want to find out if the ants are active at that moment. And what will happen was that they will, after a little bit of time, they will come to those potato chips or those hot dogs. And that tells you, they're foraging. So now would be a good time for me to put out bait. So the two-step bait baiting system, let's see if that works. Okay. The two-step system for managing fire ants. Let me see if I can go back. No, it's not going to let me go back. So what you do with the two-step system is that you treat with a bait first, and then you come back with an adulticide, and that's the way to try to manage those adults and get rid of them. In the spring of the year, you want to look for mounds in the spring. Use your hot dog or potato chip bait. Treat as soon as the ants are foraging, and select a product based upon your number of mounds, the size of the area that's infested, and the area use, whether it's for forage or for pasture or non-ag or residential. So you want to make sure that you pick the right kind of product, and it's on the labels. So let me see if it's going to move. So once you've done this, you want to try to determine how well your treatment worked. So you want to come back, usually after about 2 weeks. You look to see if the ants are still active, if the mounds are still active. Do you need to treat again? Read the product label. Can you reuse the same material? If not, then what should you use? And that's kind of finding alternatives that you can put in. If they restrict you from putting on a more frequent application like Extinguish Plus, if you remember, only 4 applications in a year. With that, you can also go to your county office, your extension office, and get information about fire ant management there. And if they can lead you in the right direction, get you to the Ag Chem manual, and you can find information there on insecticides or treatment options. Now, that was my last slide, but this is one thing I just want to bring up to everybody, just to remind you all that we have a new invasive species of tick in the state of North Carolina. It exists in 8 of our counties. It's called the Asian longhorn tick. If you go to the extension website on campus at NC State, you can just plug in Asian longhorn tick, and you can see a description of the tick and how to identify this tick. So keep an eye out for this on all of your pets and all of your livestock. This tick can be a very serious problem for our livestock industry in the state. So keep an eye out for it. And I would be very interested in learning. If you find specimens, you can give them to your county agent. They can send them to us, and we can get them identified for you. So with that, I'll be glad to take any questions.
So if you have any questions, if you'll type them in the chat window. Okay, so Michelle said we have new chicks. Are fire ants an issue for them?
For chicks?
Yes. I guess around poultry,
yes.
just in general.
Yeah, yes. So they can be a problem if they get into, if they're free-ranging chicks, they will certainly become a problem for them. If they are in a small coop or so, something like that, then they can, if they get inside, they can do something like that. So it's a good idea to go around the outside of the buildings and any place that the birds are and look for fire ant mounds, because they will definitely become a problem for young birds particularly.
So Claire said, so with turkeys, dogs, cats, and stock, limited to hot water with a question mark?
I guess I don't quite understand the question. Are they saying that if you've got turkeys and all that, that you can only use hot water? That's
I
not the
think
case.
that's what she's asking, that if you have all
Yeah.
those different animals, are you limited to just hot water?
No, you can use you can use the baits as long as if you don't allow if your birds are free ranging and they're going out into that area, you can treat the area and then wait 7 days, and then then you can go back out there. But you may want to treat certain portions of your property, wait a little while, and then let them go back out.
So Jared asked if using 7 liquid, what mixture rate is best?
Um, I would have to look at the label more closely to tell you what percentage that is, but it did say on that label that you had to apply 2 gallons of liquid 7 mixed up into the mound itself. And so I would have to look back at that label. I don't recall off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it's hard for us extension professionals to be able to quote labels just off the top of our head. So send us an email. We'll be more than happy to check those labels, or if you've got the product, just pull the label out and it'll tell you how to mix it and how to use it. So Mag says spinosades are contraindicated in seizure-prone dogs per the flea tick applications. What is on the label for these products?
So with the spinosad, because of the way that it's being used in the baits, is quite different than what you would be using it when applying it to your pet. When you put it on a pet, it's really concentrated and it's a relatively high dose, and that's why you're seeing reactions in certain pets. But if you're putting it on a mound or something like that, it's usually a significantly lower dose than what you would be putting on your pet. And so they are pretty, they don't have any restrictions about it on the label about pets coming in contact with it.
Okay, so we have a couple more questions. This one asks, what is best to use in a field with sheep, goats, and small heritage pigs? Some may be used for meat, though many months out. Where to purchase products?
So I purchase products at just the ag supply store. Just go in and get the material there. Some places you can get larger quantities from the Lowe's Home Improvement stores, but that usually requires that they special order it for you. Once again, if you end up with a product that gives you a 7-day waiting period or something like that, it's best not to allow the animals back out onto that area until after you've done your treatments for 7 days.
And I will be sending out this presentation along with some handouts. I've wrote articles, and Dr. Watson has articles that list these products. And some of the articles tell you which ones are for companion animals, which ones are for food animals. I think I've still got that. So we'll be happy. I'll put that and compile it together for you all. So Michelle, she was the one that asked about the new chicks. So she says, we have treated with Martin's Surrender. How long do we need to keep the chicks away from that area?
Oh boy. Do you happen to remember what the active ingredient is in Martin's Surrender?
Yeah, she put it here. Can you look at the chat window? Because I cannot pronounce it. It is a very long
Okay.
word.
Okay, let me see here.
She's the last comment all the way at the bottom.
Well, you know, I can't see the chat window.
Okay, so it is acetylphosphoramidothioate asphate. I know I did not say that correctly.
Yeah, so that that must be acephate. So You know, I can't tell you. I would have to look it up. You know, in the handout I gave Lauren to share with you, it has a link to Kelly Solutions, North Carolina. And in that Kelly Solutions in North Carolina, it will have it will allow you to plug in the name of a brand name of an insecticide, the commercial name of an insecticide, and then it will allow you to look at the label itself, and you can just call it up right online and look at those labels. You know, I don't know if that will work.
Yeah, I should have thought about that and had a second computer set up so I could have looked up labels. You can't really do much while you're running Zoom. But if you guys have specific label questions, just email me. If I can't handle it, I will copy Dr. Watson on it and he can help get the question answered. So don't feel like we're putting you off or anything like that. It's just hard without looking at these labels. So just send me an email. We'll send you handouts. Hopefully your question will get answered through our handouts. But this is recorded, so you'll be able to refer back to it. I'll send out that and the handouts and a short evaluation that I would really appreciate y'all completing. And if there's no more questions, we will be done for the night. Do you have anything, Dr. Watson?
No, that sounds pretty good. I just did a quick check and I was able to look for acephate, but there's a long list of insecticides. One thing, once you go into Kelly Solutions, it will tell you if the product is registered or not, and if it's been discontinued. So it allows you to go through. Sometimes you'll find something in an outbuilding or something like that, and you'll think, oh, well, maybe I can use this. Well, sometimes those things are no longer registered for use or been discontinued. So it's an important thing to take a look at. So send us an email. We'll be able to look at it and give you a more definitive answer for what you're looking for.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. Thank you, Dr. Watson. And y'all be looking out for my email. Have a great night.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.